haven't already booked your tickets for travel during festive season, the fare scare is staring right at you. Look at this. Bengaluru, Delhi, 2023. We're just looking at October 23-25. That's the Dussehra period. The tickets were around 6,041. In October 24, this is at 6,369. 2023, I'll explain this graphic again. So October 23 to 25, last year the fares were around 6,041. In Dussehra, it was 6,039. Cut to this year, October 11 to 13, it's around 12,532. Dussehra is around 11,952. Look at that huge, massive surge. 2023, again, November 11 to 13, that's the Diwali window. It was around an average of 6,662 rupees. On November 12th, that's Diwali day, it was 7,000 rupees. Then you have 2024. Currently, between October 30th to November 1st, it's around 13,871 rupees. And on Diwali day, that's October 31st, it's 28,814. Look at that massive, massive, massive surge. Then you have the Mumbai-Delhi stretch. Similarly, let's do a comparison. 2023, October 23rd to 25th, around the Dussehra period, 6,250. On Dussehra day, that's October 24th, it was 6,800. Cut to 2024, October 11 to 13, that's the Dussehra period, an average of 8,340. On Dussehra day, that's October 12th, it's a 12,754, almost double. Again, looking at November 11 to 13th, 2023. This is again for Mumbai-Delhi, 7,250. On Diwali day, 7,700 rupees per ticket. Cut to 2024, this year, October 30th to November 1st, is 16,353. On Diwali day, it's 24,896. Look at that. What a massive, massive surge and change. And to put things in perspective, look at this comparison. Tickets for Bengaluru to Delhi this weekend on September 14th will cost somewhere between 5,648 to 11,582 across airlines and across sites, which will more than double a month and a half since now for Diwali, costing anything between 8,500 to even 29,000. That's the massive, massive surge that we are looking at. According to local circles, 72% consumers surveyed who use airline apps websites say they have frequently experienced airfares being increased if they search for it multiple times. You and I are a testimony to this. You've gone on sites looking for fares, you move on to see other things, you return to it, and there you go. Prices hike. 62% consumers surveyed who use airline apps websites say they have frequently experienced being presented with a false sense of urgency to get them to book faster. And then you have 62% of consumers surveyed who have frequently experienced hidden charges associated with flight ticket booking that are not presented upfront. Remember, over 6 in 10 flyers confirm presence of dark patterns like drip pricing, basket sneaking, among others. We'll get to all of that with our panel of experts as well. In fact, in a report earlier this year, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Transport, Tourism and Culture recommended the establishment of a separate entity under Aviation Ministry to regulate air ticket prices. The committee highlighted the need of price controls and fair treatment for consumers. Power call. But from the beginning of this year, somewhere in February, cut to now, when the Aviation Minister of Modi 3.0, Mohan Naidu, stated that the government is in constant communication with airlines operators. He emphasized that airlines have been asked not to take advantage of the situation and to maintain reasonable airfare prices. The minister added that the government is taking all necessary steps to address the matter. In fact, for greater context of how the minister approached this issue right at the beginning, let's just very quickly listen into the reaction that he had made on June 13th when he assumed charge as the aviation minister.
My whole intention is to make air travel reach to the common man, and it has happened over 10 years. There have been Udan scheme that has come up. Modi ji has also said Hawai chappal se Hawai jahaz tak. So I want to make it a reality for that. For that, prices have to be affordable. Now the market scenarios or the other external factors, COVID, so a lot of different factors have made in improving the prices. So we have to sit down, the department has to sit down, and whenever that thing is happening, my intention or my priority would be from the people of this country that to bring down the prices, and I would sit down with that point of view.
And now just let's look at what the reality of Indian aviation sector is, even as we speak. Once a major player, Go Air, is now grounded. Financial woes leave SpiceJet's fleet in trouble. It's almost down to Indigo versus Tata-owned Air India, Vistara, Air Asia Express. Importantly, prices are soaring despite, and this is important, despite what is being said by experts, an 18% drop in fuel costs. That's really what we are looking at. While this is set up and we have given you facts in hand, let's just look at what's boiling on the pot. Devesh Agrawal joins us, Chief Analyst, BangaloreAviation.com. Dr. Vandana Singh, aviation expert. Bejon Misra, who's a consumer activist, as well as Ashwini Kakkar, who's a former chairman for Mercury Travels. Thank you very much, all four of you, for joining us. Mr. Bejon Misra, have you booked your tickets? Affordable pricing, is that how you look at it?
Sneha, it's not only I book a ticket, I travel profusely around the country crisscrossing. But what I want to tell you, I went to the High Court, the Honorable High Court in Delhi, with this issue. And you know what the Delhi High Court had to say? That, don't disturb these airlines now, please, Mr. Mishra, as a petitioner, because they are in deep trouble. They are not able to maintain their profitability. Now, if you hear this from the judiciary, I only wanted the judiciary to intervene to bring teeth to the regulator. The DGCA is always seen sleeping on these issues. What I want to tell you, the Honorable Minister, when he took over, you gave a clipping, what he promised. Till now, what is he doing? The first 100 days, he's supposed to come out with a plan. Where is that plan in terms of ensuring that the citizens can afford going by air? You see, it is you showed data which is realistic, factual. What did the data show? 300% price increase. What does that mean? What you need to understand is we want the airlines to be transparent. I went to the High Court only because number of passengers have lost their money because the airlines have gone bankrupt. I went because when Jet went bankrupt, the Go Air went bankrupt. You see, the issue is thousands and crores of rupees of citizens are getting locked up where they're not getting their refund, they're not getting their money back, which they're paid in advance. So how do you build a trust in terms of the financial mechanism of the airline? What is the regulator doing? We don't know what the regulator is doing. They're not consulting the passengers. They're not consulting us in terms of how transparent the fare structure is. We understand that there are certain sectors which needs to be promoted and subsidized. There are certain sectors where the traffic is high. They want to cover that up and do cross subsidy. We all understand as consumers. We don't shy away from paying, but we want to pay the realistic fare.
Okay. Ashwini Kakkar, if I can come to you. Going to any of these websites and trying to book the tickets is quite a task. Of course, we brought you the survey of how people are saying they are forced into booking. There's a false sense of urgency, several other reasons that are given. But even if you don't get into all of those aspects, my team has got down to actually bring out just the tremendous hike or surge in airfares if you compare just this month to month and a half from now, which is almost more than 30 days. Let's just look at what happened last year to compare it to now. Massive surge, even if you look at just for festival season 2023 vis-a-vis festival season 2024. What are consumers really up for? Why is this such a Herculean challenge? Why should consumers face the brunt of it all?
So, Sneha, is that for me?
Yes, Mr. Ashwini Kakkar.
So, the first issue is that it's fast turning out to be a duopoly. There's just Indigo and Air India which are left standing. I think you pointed that out, that, with SpiceJet in trouble, with Go Air gone, and Akasa being just too small, the situation is quite precarious in the entire country. Now, clearly, the situation is likely to improve 18 months down the road when a lot of the aircraft deliveries will happen, and everybody will be able to then normalize the fares, and that will probably help the customer a lot. In the meantime, the airlines are not bringing down their prices, even though fuel prices, like you said, have come down from about $90
Correct.
a barrel to about 72, 73, $74 a barrel. So I think, that's another issue
Roughly
that we have to take up
18%.
with the airlines. The government is further thinking of, bringing air turbine fuel into the GST basket so that the fares can be further lowered. But if the airlines are going to grab all the money that's going to come out of all this, it's not really going to be fair. I think, even unbundling of products has not worked for the customer, because the 20 kilo allowance has gone down to 15 kilo allowance. So they are making you pay for every little kilo that is in excess. The seating charges have gone up. Even if you want to have a child
Ashwini Kakkar,
seated
I just
next
want
to
to
you
ask you one
also.
more question before I go to the other panelists as well for their introductory remarks. Sorry to interrupt you. Since you since you're the chairman for Mercury Travels, what's the kind of discrepancy that you are seeing currently in the airfares? Are you corroborating what we have said? Is there a huge surge already in the air prices and it's only likely to escalate? Could you give us a sense of it?
That is absolutely true on the domestic front. I think the airfares have gone up to more or less between 2 to 2.5 times of what they were even at the same time last year. And that is not a good situation to be in for a country which has so many travelers. I think, that's something that needs to be thought through. And the regulator and the ministry need to come together to actually try and do something more for the customer. Now, clearly, there are many other issues that are cropping up. Delays, for example. I think the last month's record has shown that the on-time arrivals are down to 60%. I mean, this is pathetic. Airlines cannot do all this, and they have to be held accountable to these kind of things. There are new issues emerging.
Okay.
At a
Okay.
domestic level, all these things happen. But at an international level, if you see, the big difference between domestic travel and international travel used to be visas. And now a lot of countries are offering Indians visa-free travel. And that is going to change the situation. I think today, Cambodia and Vietnam and countries like this are cheaper than some of the domestic destinations during the peak periods like Diwali and things like that. I will come,
Okay.
of course, later
Okay.
to a couple of other issues that are emerging, and those issues hinge around, the equipment problems. For example, Boeing and Airbus are both
Sure, we'll
having
get to that. We'll
equipment
get to
problems
that in a bit, sir. We'll get to that. Let
with
me
the
just get in
customer.
others as well at this point.
Yes, please.
Devesh
Yes.
Agrawal,
Yes, yes.
I mean, all our panelists have spoken about this. Even aviation experts are speaking about this. I'm sure you would also speak about this. But despite what's happening in the Indian aviation sector, it may be bad now or it may be worse now. Even during the better days, it was not like the consumers were not at the brunt of it all. They were still facing it all. You may say 18 months from now, the fleet is going to get added, and therefore you are going to have possibly a relief. But let's look at what happened last year, last to last year. So it's not like an uncommon phenomena that we are really talking about. Every time during festivities, this is a given. we are going to face this. Now, Devesh Agrawal, help us understand how are tickets, how are the fares really determined? Who's responsible for this? It's market driven, yes. But is it as simple as that to say market driven? And if it is market driven, how can the entire cost of just an escalation in demand see a 200, 500% increase in tickets during festive season and that be borne by consumers?
Sneha ji, firstly, thank you so much for having me. It is exactly as you said, and I'm sorry, I'm going to call out a couple of your panelists. There's a bit of hypocrisy here as well. See, airlines, if you look at the entire aviation sector in this country, the only part of the aviation industry that is not a monopoly is the airlines. You have competition. Airports are monopolies. The government is a monopoly. The air traffic control is a monopoly. Everything is a monopoly. Prices are fixed. Airlines are gouged. Okay, I have no fiat for the airlines. I have absolutely no connection with airlines other than just like you and all the other panelists and every other listener and viewer of yours, I'm a passenger. I have absolutely no connection, but it's a simple system that airlines practice. They have what is called a revenue management system. In fact, a classmate of mine works for one of the biggest revenue management companies in the world. And he was explaining to me, it's kind of like a black box, and there is a bucket system. If I've taken a pair, like let's take, everybody's talking Indigo, I take an aircraft of about 180 seats, and I will divide that aircraft at 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30 seats. I've got 6 different fare brackets. As the 30 seats get filled up, I go to the next fare bracket, I go to the next fare bracket. It is a complete function of demand. In fact, while you were talking, I just casually Googled Bangalore to Delhi on the 31st of October is still 10,000 rupees. It's not 24,000. I looked in the United States on the 27th, if I recall, I think, it's, I think the 27th of November, the day before Thanksgiving, which is considered the busiest day of travel. The fare is 400% that of the very next day or the day before. It is a natural supply and demand, and airlines. See, the airline seat is the ultimate perishable commodity. Mr. Mishra says he went to court. Very good. Did he ever go to, has anybody thought about the fact that if the DGCA says, I'm going to put an upper cap, the airlines will say, okay, I want a lower cap as well. So those people who are getting the 2, 3, 3, 4,000 rupee fares on a regular basis on, if they book in advance and all that, are suddenly going to have to pay about 8,000 bucks because the seesaw, you see, if the seesaw is like this and I make it flatter, automatically the bottom also rises up. Nobody asks the airlines, are you making money when you're selling those seats at a very, very low price? Because there is no demand. We suddenly wake up when there is Diwali, when there is Dussehra, when there is, Ayudh Puja, Ganpati, all these kind of things. It's natural. We face it in our food. When there is an extreme demand of onions, do we not see onions and tomatoes and all going to 100 rupees when we are regularly paying 20 rupees for it? It's a simple supply and demand. And I would urge Mr. Mishra, instead of going to the court and saying, have DGCA regulate the fares, instead go to the court and force the Ministry of Civil Aviation to take that ragtag piece of thing they call the passenger charter, which gives airlines every form of exception, to turn around and say, no, you must fly your aircraft. If your flight is going to be delayed, you will pay this amount and it will be in cash and it will be within so many days. Today, the passenger charter, and a senior airline exec told me, Devesh, I can pay my passenger in monopoly money after 6 months, and I'm still meeting the conditions that the Ministry of Civil Aviation has imposed on me as an airline. Now, I would urge a consumer activist like Mr. Mishra to go to the court and get that strengthened. Then what Mr. Kakkar was saying about flights being delayed, we know of a certain airline who is in such financially bad shape that they're flying less than 1/3 of their fleet. They're canceling flights left, right, and center. They can do it with impunity because they know they don't have any penalty on them. Let Mr. Mishra go to the court and get this enforced in strong points.
Okay.
Then you see the airline industry changing. Then you see how people will fly on time. Then you'll see how airlines will not cancel flights and leave passengers in the lurch. That is the biggest benefit he can give to passengers.
Okay, Dr. Vandana Singh, I know you're waiting. Give me few minutes. Give me 2 minutes. Let me very quickly go over at this point to Mr. Bejon Misra. Mr. Bejon Misra, you have a right to respond.
Yes,
Please go ahead.
Sneha, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Dinesh bhai, what I want to tell you very categorically that I, as a law-abiding citizen, I go before the court because I want justice. And the justice is transparency. I'm not doubting what you are talking about. But why can't the airline come out transparently telling their passengers how much of profitability they are doing in which month and how, in what manner? You see, those bucket systems which you're talking about, who is monitoring them? Nobody's monitoring it in our country. You bring in an expert, you pay that expert a fat fee to manage your finance, and you don't talk about the passengers. You don't even want to make the passengers peep into what you're doing. What is this going on? You are
Sir, do you
earning
do that?
crores
Do
of
you do
rupees
that
out
for
of me,
Reliance?
and you
I'm
are
sorry,
not
sir.
making yourself
Do you,
transparent.
sir, do you
Please
do that
hear me
for
out.
Reliance? Do you
Please
do
hear
that for
me out.
HDFC?
Please hear me out. Please hear me out.
Huh.
You see, my petition before the Honorable High Court was comprehensive. It was comprehensive. It was including all what you are talking about. But the mute point is the regulator is sleeping. The regulator is found sleeping. They are
I
not
agree, sir.
transparent. They
I
are not
agree.
allowing passengers to know. And airlines after airlines are going bust after paying money in advance. You see, they collect our money in advance. They don't
Yes.
pay to the flight companies. They don't pay to the airport
Okay.
authorities. How do
That
you
is why I was
react to
saying,
that?
sir,
Okay.
that passenger
All right.
charter,
All right.
that passenger
You know,
charter, which
I
is
mean,
strengthened.
you know, Devesh Agrawal, also just to add to what Mr. Mishra has said, and I've never made the show, it's never about the journalist or the anchor for sure, but just to add to an experience, I had to fly for a personal emergency. When I was booking the flight ticket to go to Kerala for a family emergency, the tickets were showing at 7,000. 5 minutes, or I think 15 minutes down the line, when after going to the website and coming back 2-3 times, I finally went down to booking it and it skyrocketed to 11,000 rupees, matter of 15 minutes. I still book it, obviously, because it's a family emergency. I will still book it. I'm not going to see what is offering where. I reached the airport within few hours. We are boarded inside the flight. We are made to wait for 1 hour, 15 minutes inside the flight. We were not given any reasons. We were told we are returning to the bay because of some technical issues. Who's bothered? All one wants to do at those VRs is sleep and then manage to get to the... You know, it's not about what I'm saying, but this is also, as the survey says, and if we can have the survey up, these are concerns of 62, 72% of people at different levels. So while these are big concerns, you obviously are saying the charter needs to be pulled up, but for an average consumer, you are paying the money and you're not getting the services.
But that is what I'm saying.
And you're paying double the money at times.
I'm saying two things I will tell. I will tell your viewers a couple of secrets. One, when you're inquiring for fares, please open a concept of a private window. I will tell you, just 2 days back for my son, I was searching a fare to fly to the United States. I did the same flight 2 times. In a matter of 10 minutes, the fare went up 50,000 rupees. So the airlines and all of these, all the various engines, social media sites, everything, they are tracking us. So the best way to do it is please use a private window so that you are not tracked. If possible, buy a VPN like Nord or Surfshark or any other VPN so that you can disguise your IP address. This is how, the airlines, they see, oh, there is demand, bhav badao. Come on, we face it with our fruit and vegetables. The reason I pointed out about the passenger charter is because we passengers are being taken for a ride. Airlines cancel flights with impunity. They delay flights with impunity. And they feel that they can get away with it because there is no penalty attached to it. The penalties that are prescribed in the passenger charter are so flimsy, and there are so many glaring loopholes given to the airlines. The airlines are told, oh, if there's an ATC delay, you're forgiven. The last time you reached an airport late and you said there was a traffic jam, what did the airline turn around and tell you? You should have left early. Here is a system where the air traffic control system
we are laughing because it's so ironical. What you're speaking is so full of irony that we are at the receiving end anyway.
Like Mr. Misra, go and get that strengthened. That will change the entire landscape.
Okay, all right, sir. Allow me. I'm going to stop you at this point. Please allow me that traditionally, it's always said women first, ladies first. Dr. Vandana Singh, we've moved away from that era, but thank you very much for your patience. You've been kept waiting for a very long time, but you're still smiling. Thank you so much. Dr. Vandana Singh, you're also part of the sector in UK. Now we're here. I mean, I don't have the first-hand experience of how that sector works there, but nonetheless, I've been reading about watchdogs in the UK that look at fair pricing and escalations and all that. Does it really work any different from what it works in India?
Sneha, first of all, thank you for having me on this show. And yes, I've been very patiently watching this very interesting discussion. Firstly, in my view, it's a welcome move from the new aviation minister on monitoring the airfares. But the fact is that हवाई चप्पल से हवाई जहाज तो होने नहीं वाला है. It's like you rightfully said, it's a deja vu kind of an experience because we've been there, seen it, and it happens every year. And I also zip around the world very, very often. Almost every week I'm traveling. And yes, you see that spike. So well, you call it the artificial intelligence or what, but you see that suddenly the fares go up, like you described your case, or Sir described booking for his son. This is happening. What we are not doing is we are not learning from the best practices. And best practices globally, we have to observe what are the positives and what are the negatives. Perhaps there is a collaboration, perhaps there is a global partnership that can be made. We talk about star alliances, we talk about one world alliances. What happens in them? How do the airlines collaborate and work together? Why is it that we cannot manage ourselves when we know there's a festive season? It's not that October 31st was not known to be Diwali. It was not that right now we don't know it's Ganpati Puja or whether other festivals are on. The fact of the matter and matter of the fact is that the fares just go up blindly. And why? Looking at the Indian context, I'm not going to go to the global context. In the Indian context, you are just left with one Indigo and one Tata Group. And the Tata Group, less said, the better. Because I've been flying Vistara, I've been flying Air India, I've been flying Indigo, and I know how the situation is. Akasa, hardly anybody talks about it. So when there is no competition, advantage will be taken. And that's what is exactly happening to us, normal middle-class people who are paying exorbitant fares to go up and down. I have my daughter who's in Chennai, who's studying in the Officers Training Academy in the Army. And I assure you that every second week when I have to rush there, the fares are jumping to 200% just from Delhi to Chennai and Chennai to Delhi. So question is, for how long? When are we going to stop it? How are we going to regulate it? Every year we talk about learning from best practices, how it happens in the UK, how it happens elsewhere. I would just like to give you one example. Look at the religious traffic. Just go into Hajj. So from the world, people go for Hajj, right? And during Hajj, what happens? Okay, on one side, where they go, location, there could be chaos. But when it comes to fleet management, you have at least 1,500 extra flights. You have extra charters. You have everything lined up in a way that the passengers are able to go smoothly without such exorbitant surges in the fare. And right now, what are we talking about India? 1,200, I think, odd aircraft orders have been made, while 120 aircrafts are already grounded. Look at the situation. So it's almost like making hay while the sun shines. Prices are just going through the roof, and there is no monitoring happening. And we keep talking about monitoring, but I would like to see that coming in. I would like to see the transparency coming in, and that transparency is not coming in. Now, when you talk about UK, for example, or you talk about Europe as such, you talk about Germany, there is a regulation, there is monitoring going on. Government has a certain hold in collaboration with the airlines. What do we have here? What do we have here in the Tata Group, I want to ask. So ultimately one runs to the Indigo because they say, I'd rather fly, economy, because the whole thing is economy. And I may afford 11,000, 12,000 one way to Chennai, but I can't afford a 28,000 on a premium economy in Vistara. I can't do it. So if I can't do it, how can we go from a Hawaii chappal to a Hawaii jahaz? So those are my comments. And if we talk about the global scale, I think that's going to take a long, long while to discuss, but I think they follow the best practices. They have partnership, they have alliances, and they have regulations. We do not. We do not, Sneha.
Devesh Agrawal, do you want to very quickly reflect? And I may not be able to give you more than a minute and a half, but you've had Ms. Vandana, and she's talking about some best practices that have not been followed in India. We are far from it, apparently. We've not got into what those best practices are. But let's look at the parliamentary committee that met earlier in this year. I think it was in February that the recommendations were out. They said there needs to be an independent body under the Aviation Ministry to look into the fares. It should be independent and so on and so forth. Nothing of that sort has really been implemented. Is it even practically possible? Do you see something like that work? And in fact, the parliamentary committee went on to recommend that it should be quasi-judicial in its powers. Do you even see something like that practically happen in India?
Yeah, the thing is that either we choose to have a regulated environment or we choose to have a free market. That you cannot have, I'm very sorry to say, I'm sorry to use this pun, but they say, you cannot be partially pregnant. So government has to make up its mind. If it wants a regulated industry, go regulated. You want a free market industry, go free market. What I feel is that we are looking at those few spikes in between. Vandana ji very rightly said about the Hajj. Let me tell you, the Hajj fares are controlled because the Ministry of Civil Aviation tenders out Hajj charters. The ministry decides in advance and it guarantees those Hajj charters. So if whether the flight is full or not full, that aircraft, that particular operator is going to get a fixed fee on their charter. Coming to what you just said, I fully agree. Partly, I will tell you that the parliamentary committee, let's face it, we are a democracy and they have to appeal to the population. They have to appeal to the electorate. Yes, there are multitudes of issues that are currently facing the industry. Boeing is having an issue delivering new aircraft. Airbus is so backlogged. And of course, the Pratt & Whitney GTF engine. Luckily for us, the Pratt & Whitney GTF engine now has kind of plateaued. And in the industry, I could share some news that they have appointed a lot more MRO organizations to replace those engines. So at this point, this is about the maximum percentage of aircraft that are going to be on the ground. And going forward, the percentage of aircraft on ground is going to be lesser because the turnaround time to replace the engines and the engine parts are going to be shorter.
Oh, God.
So that is, definitely capacity is going to come. But right now we are lacking capacity in the airports. Let's face it, we go at 6 a.m. It is worse than any market in the, I'm sorry, I'm from Bangalore. I would turn around and tell people, compare it to Russell market or KR market. I'm quite sure there'd be an equivalent market in Delhi or Bombay or anywhere else. The airports are simply stretched at their seams.
I'm running out of time. Ashwini Kakkar, you wanted to make a point.
Yes.
Ashwini Kakkar, very quickly.
The key point I want to make is that, we are just seeing the advent of artificial intelligence in this whole industry. I think going forward, things are going to get much worse. And it's really a question of buyer beware. And of course, whether it's virtual private networks or whether it's using, different kinds of methodologies to protect yourself. And all of us have faced this, that you go to an airline, the same airline site 3 times, 4 times, the price keeps rising up and up and up. So I think that is one aspect of artificial intelligence that I want to talk about. But more important, I think the onus is coming on the traveler himself to look out for the equipment that he is flying these days. Because, Boeing MAX 737 had its own share of troubles. Boeing on the whole is going through a
Right.
difficult period. I think Airbus, as has been demonstrated by Cathay and a couple of
Okay,
other
I think
airlines,
I'm being told,
is
sir,
also
that
starting
we've
to have
lost your
trouble.
video and that's why we had to cut out of you. We can only get your audio, unfortunately, Mr. Ashwini Kakkar. Mr. Bejon Misra wants to make a quick remark, please, and then I'll take the closing remarks from Ms. Vandana.
Quick remark, and
Yes.
thanks for getting me in. I must tell you that Vandana ji has definitely adapted up very well, and I would also go for that airlines have to become accountable to the passengers. There has to be transparency and best practices. And it is not that it is a rocket science. It is happening in other parts of the world. They just have to adopt it in India. They have to be strong enough to and courageous to adopt it in India. And that is what we as passengers are demanding. Transparency, accountability, best practices, learning from other countries who are practicing it today. Why can't we do it in India? And I must tell you, very good example Vandana ji has given.
Okay,
From
all right.
before, when your peak time is, bring in airlines to give in, chartered flights, extra flights.
Right.
Make that
Okay,
happen.
let me just
Plan it
very
out.
quickly go to Dr. Vandana, sir, if you allow me. Okay, Dr. Vandana, my question to you is, whether it be Devesh
Thank you,
Agrawal,
Sneha.
or whether it be Bejon Misra, or whether it be Ashwini Kakkar, who reflect different sectors, literally, but they all seem to not be very optimistic of what the future holds. Do you see it as that way? Because, when the minister came in power in Modi 3.0, he went on to say that I know what you all face because as an ordinary citizen, I have faced it. He says it's being monitored. The government is looking at what the people are doing. Do you see possibility of any change, or how do you look at it as an expert?
Thank you, Sneha. First of all, the comments from the aviation minister were very heartening, young and dynamic. But then, as they say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So my point is, same as the other panelists have spoken, it's high time that, we spell it out correctly. Transparency comes in. These things are not coming out from anywhere. We know when these periods are, when are the festive periods, when what is happening. Supply and demand dynamics have to be met. More aircrafts have to come in, and the government has to be very proactively involved in this. You can't just pass comments, say you'll have committees,
Right.
and then forget about it. So you really got to put it down as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and have an action plan, a living action plan, so that when we come to this situation next year, that this is not what we hear, that it was same here, same here, same here. We have to say, look, now here is a difference and here is a percentage, and the government has to prove that. The Ministry of Civil Aviation has to prove that to us. So the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Thank you.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, I think one thing that all of us would agree it's for the consumers to fend for themselves. So please book as soon as you can if you are planning travel for the rest of the year. But nonetheless, Devesh Agrawal, Dr. Vandana Singh, Bejon Misra, as well as Ashwini Kakkar, thank you very much for joining. And I really do hope that the government of India has been listening to you, because all of you have some very, very important perspectives to offer if the government does want to act. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.